What is so special about this bundle and why is it so powerful a tool? Well, lean back and watch. Let's begin with the LFO. LFO shapes module whose rate adjustments are synchronized either to the BPM of your DAW. At the moment it's my DAW because I'm using it as a VCA, or to the BPM rate of the standalone version. The big yellow knob here sets the rate, and it's the frequency range is from 0.25 Hertz when I have 120 BPM, just an example. With other BPMs, of course, the frequency, because of the synchronization, is different, but let me use the basic 120 BPM. So it's the LFO frequency range is from 0.25 Hertz there up to 32 Hertz in audio rate already. So I'm modulating the pitch of the partial oscillator with the LFO here. So in rates, in the rates relations to the BPM, it's 1/64th, and on the other end 4 times. It takes a while for the frequency meter to grasp the right frequency. Now it is already. There are 9 wave shapes on offer, which we choose using the smaller knob here. The first 4 wave shapes are the common wave shapes: sine and triangle. Now let me increase the frequency. And we don't need the sound. This is the best and most direct way to total independence from factory presets and preset libraries. Synth Exercise Booklet number 1 is the first of a whole series of practical and straight-to-the-point synthesizer sound design exercises and their solutions. It's primarily practical. Yes, I talk about functionality and about how things work in the synthesizer that each individual booklet is about. I talk about how and why to switch on and off certain behaviors of the machine and so on, but it's always as direct as possible to making the sound we are aiming at and to the musical task we have to master. Each of these little booklets contains a few dozen exercises and their solutions, of course, and each exercise teaches you a certain technique, lets you find out how to create a certain type of sound and how to forge meaningful variations of these sounds. Follow the link in the description to download it. Okay, sine and triangle. Next one is saw, of course, and then the square wave. But turning the knob a little bit further lets us come to combined wave shapes. Here it's sine and saw. The next one is sine and square. The next one is triangle and saw. The next one is triangle and square. And the last one is saw and square. And let me go back again. Sine and square, and sine and saw. Okay, now I've adjusted the rate to a moderate 2 times and the shape to its 12 o'clock position and then the middle position. And now I let the LFO modulate the pitch of the partial oscillator again and modulate the shape parameter here, the shape parameter, this knob. I modulated using a sample and hold module. So you see sample and hold to the shape input here, and the attenuator is set to maximum, so maximum influence of the sample and holds CV maximum influence on the shape. So let me mess around a bit with the sample and hold rate, and perhaps even the fractalization rate. So we get different wave shapes of the LFO, so different developments of the pitch, and the shape of the LFO is randomized using the sample and hold. Okay. After letting it run for half an hour, my neighbor understands that there's no use in watching TV. You see, Voltage Modular has a strong educational effect. The knob here on the right side sets the type of the chosen wave shape. I have chosen the wave combination sine and square. And with this knob here on its leftmost position, we get exactly that what we have chosen. But when I start turning it clockwise, I get at first the inverted version. Then I get the original version with an offset of plus 5 volt. Then I get the original version with an offset of minus 5 volt. Then I got the inverted version with an offset of plus 5 volt. And you might have guessed it, the inverted version with an offset of minus 5 volt. And now I get the original version with the bottom wave, the negative half wave, flipped upwards. And now I get the original wave with the positive half wave flipped down. And now I get the original wave with the negative half wave being completely ignored, leading to a level of 0 volt between the positive half waves, and the opposite, the positive half wave is ignored, so between the negative half waves we get this level of 0 volt. Now back to normal. A close relationship and a friendly one to my neighbor is important to me, and therefore I have developed the patch a little bit further. I've taken the second sample and hold unit here and modulated the type parameter of the LFO, and I let the LFO modulate the pitch of the partial oscillator through a quantizer, and additionally I let the LFO modulate the fractalization amount of the partial oscillator. Let me change the sample and hold rates a bit. Now I'm changing the rate of the sample and hold. That changes the type parameter. I put it down again. And now the rate of the LFO. That changes the shape. And now both, increasing both LFO, sample and hold rates. Wait, that's not all yet. A third sample and hold unit shall modulate the rate here, the rate of the LFO, and let me soften the transitions from one waveform to the next one with this soft knob here. Okay, and back again. And soft again. And let me choose different modes. The mode is a kind of rhythmization. I can choose between whole, which is not dotted, nor triplets, so more or less no rhythmical emphasis. And the next one I can choose its triplets. Once again, the difference. Triplets. And dotted. Let me for a moment remove the rate modulation. Now I have the dotted mode. Now the triplets. Now, no rhythmical emphasis. Whole notes. Triplets. Dotted. But back to the rate modulation and to whole notes. My neighbor doesn't have only a wife, he has also a cat, and I love this cat. I'm not talking about his wife now. So let's improve the patch to do something good to the cat. We can reset the current cycle, and we can even bypass the whole LFO by feeding triggers or gates and the jacks at the bottom here. So let me go there at the bottom here, and bypassing means setting the output level to 0 volt. Let me do so. I take the square wave from this LFO as gate or trigger signal, so bypassing. Yeah, you see the output level is set to 0 then, or resetting the actual cycle. And to make this last function a little bit clearer, I change the pitch modulation in that I exclude the quantizer. Without resetting. Resetting. Bypassing. Resetting. Okay. Do you love cats? You should play something like this for them. I've patched something more melodic, I promised it. I use the LFO to modulate the fractalization amount, like in the last examples. But the LFO modulates as well the 12 dB low-pass filter. So LFO modulates fractalization amount of the oscillator, the audio oscillator, and the cut-off frequency of the 12 dB low-pass filter. The melody comes from the 8-step sequencer, which modulates the partial oscillator's pitch, and as well as, and that's important, as well as the type parameter of the LFO. So the type changes according to the pitch of the notes that we hear. The sequencer is stepped externally, clocked externally. It's clocked by the sample and hold module, which modulates the shape of the LFO. So once again, this means that the shape changes only from note to note. Alright, what else is to say? I think that's everything. So let's change the rate of the sample and hold a bit. No, it's not that nice. Okay. Yeah, and now with an additional external trigger, which is itself modulated, triggering the sample and hold, making different rhythmic changes. It's a nice thing to start with, dispatch. Oh, my neighbor has switched on the TV again and has stopped tearing off the curtains. What a pity. Well, whatever. Let's go ahead and look at the next module. The VCA contour is an ideal partner for the LFO. We can modulate not only the gain, what's clear, but also add and modulate the DC offset. The offset CV jack is equipped with an attenuator. You see here's gain, here's offset, and its attenuator. So right now the LFO is modulating the gain. The gain attenuator is at 100%. And you see always when the LFO goes high here or in the multi-oscilloscope, the green curve, then the gain goes up and the peak-to-peak volume gets higher. And now I change from gain modulation to offset modulation, and you see the difference. You see the voltages as a whole go up and down again to 0. We can do both, so let me do both. Of course, so when the offset goes high, the peak-to-peak voltage goes high as well. There is an input jack called invert above the gain CV jack. Here, this invert input jack. When we feed a positive voltage in here, for example, a second gate signal, the CV, which modulates the gain, is inverted. It's the CV that is inverted, not the input signal. Using a square wave of a second LFO, for example, this one here, for an LFO that runs at a lower frequency, as you see, the blue curve is the curve from this gain, from this inverting LFO. So when we feed this signal into the invert input jack, a positive gain modulation returns into a negative gain modulation and vice versa. So once again, the red graph here is the original wave from the partial oscillator. The green square wave here shows the right LFO, which modulates the gain. And the yellow signal here is the output of the VCA. So you see, it corresponds to the gain modulating highs and lows. And the blue curve, as I told you, is delivers the signal to invert the modulation. So always, let me freeze it, it's perhaps better to be seen. Always when this signal is high, the green signal here is inverted, or what the green signal shows is inverted. So we are at a low here. So it should be at 0 volt, but it's the opposite. It's a high. And still, the inverting signal is still high here. And you see the gain modulating green signal is at a high, but the output is at a low, at a 0 volt. It's inverted. Now here, the inverting signal coming from this LFO is at a low. And everything is as it should be, is according to what this LFO, the gain modulating LFO forces the VCA to do until the next high comes in, and then things are inverted again. So once again, it's the CV that is inverted and not the original signal that comes from the partial oscillator. The mode switch here lets us choose between a unipolar and a bipolar reaction to the gain CV. I've adjusted the default gain to 50% here to demonstrate the difference. Right now we are at bipolar reaction to the gain CV. Once again, this is the original signal coming from the partial oscillator. This is the gain modulating LFO, and this here is the result coming out of the VCA. And now I switch to unipolar, and you see the difference. I think the graphics are self-explanatory here. Once again, back to bipolar and back to unipolar again, bipolar, and so on and so on. The VCA contours module contains two identical VCA units, the left one here and the right one here. We have worked only with the right one, the yellow one so far. But now I use the modulation CV jacks of both units. You see here gain modulation by this LFO, the LFO shapes, and the left module is gain modulated by the left LFO, the Cherry Audio LFO. But there isn't anything patched into the input jack. Only the right input jack is used here. The upper right graph here shows the output of the partial oscillator. The green curve shows the gain modulating CV from the right LFO. This one is a triangle modulation. The yellow curve is the sine wave that comes from the left LFO, which is fed into the gain input of the left VCA contours unit, which is not carrying a signal. The blue one is the result, what comes out of the VCA contours. So what about the fade knob now? Let's the fade modulation, the attenuator, or the manual fade knob. When it's at 12 o'clock position, each CV modulates only its own unit. So the LFO here, the green one, the Cherry Audio one, modulates only the left gain, which doesn't matter anything because once again there isn't anything patched into it, and the right LFO modulates only the right unit. What we can see here, it's the triangle modulating the gain of this signal. But when I turn this fade knob to the right side, then things changes, because now the right LFO still modulates the gain, but also the CV what goes into the left LFO modulates the gain. So both CVs here share in the modulation. So the other way around, when I turn it this way, we don't see anything special. It's still as if it were in the middle position, because now the yellow, the right LFO, or not LFO, yes, the right LFO modulates also the left VCA unit additionally to the left LFO. So now both LFOs share the modulation of the left unit, which we don't see because there isn't anything to modulate. No signal in. Now each modulating CV modulates its own unit, and now both CVs share in modulating the right unit. In other words, turning the fade knob to one side allows the CV of the unit on the opposite side to contribute to the modulation. Let's return to the more, let's say, melodic patch from a while ago. I've added two LFOs here and VCA contours module. The left VCA unit here receives the audio from the low-pass filter, you see here, and the right VCA unit receives the audio from the bandpass filter. Both gains are CV modulated, you see here and here, but whereas the left gain, this one here, is modulated only by the left LFO, by this one here, the right gain is modulated by both, because the fade knob is turned completely to the right. Now I've changed the patch a bit. The two LFOs and VCA contour are adjusted exactly as before, only that they now don't modulate the audio, but the CV which comes from this upper LFO, the one which has been in the patch right from the beginning. The CV from this upper LFO here goes through this VCA 2 LFOs, a group here in the lower cabinet, and the left unit of the VCA, this one, modulates the fractalization, you see here, whereas the right one modulates the filter cutoff. Well, that's it. So let's listen to it and let me highlight the cables. Okay, I think you've got it. Before I continue, please have a look at this. It's my new online course, Production Secrets of Generative Music with Modular Synths, and it's useful not only for making generative music. You can get it from my website. The link is down in the description. And, well, thank you for visiting it. There's a single unit version of this module as well. It works exactly the same, but for the fact that the fade function is missing, of course. The last module I'm going to talk about is the VCA levels module, and again it comes in two versions, one with only one unit and one with a double VCA, and I'm using the double one here. The only difference is that this double unit VCA levels module has two outputs for each unit, one the original giving the original wave or the originally processed wave, and one giving the delivering the inverted version, as you see. So the red one, the red graph here, is the wave as it comes from the partial oscillator, and the green one is the one which comes from the upper output, and you see it's identical. The yellow one here down is the wave coming from the lower output, the inverted one, as you see. Let me stop it, so I think it's clear. But take care. There's also an invert input here, the invert CV input. When I feed positive CV in here, for example, gate or a square wave, the polarity of the original signal is inverted. The green curve shows it in a while. So let me take the square wave from the LFO here, then from time to time, you see here the polarity changes, and here again, let me stop it. So the lower inverted output delivers the inverted version of the upper output, which delivers the processed signal. So the lower inverted output delivers the inverted version of the upper output of the signal after being processed by the VCA. And this means that if the original wave, the red one here, the red one, is inverted using this invert CV jack here, then the lower output delivers the inverted version of the inverted wave, which is again the original wave, of course. The rest of the module doesn't need any further explanation. There's, of course, a gain CV inject with an attenuator. And by the way, you might have noticed it already, that all attenuators are bipolar. So the better term would be attenuverters, therefore. I've added a second voice to the, let's say, melodic musical patch from a while ago, and it plays the same tune with the same basic timbre settings. Here, this is the voice, only that all timbre modulations are inverted from time to time. The VCA contours, so here, sends its output through the VCA level module to the fractalization input and to the filter cut-off modulation input. The LFO here on the left side of the VCA levels module inverts the modulations with the modulation CV, which is sent through the VCA levels. You see, I have chosen the square wave to do so. So let me, yeah, and the echo verb is just rounding up the sound a bit. So let me show the cables again. So this is like before, from the LFO to the VCA levels module. From there, it goes to the upper voice, like before, no difference. But additionally, to the VCA levels, to the VCA levels module here, to both units, using both units. From there, it goes to the partial oscillator and to the filter. And the LFO, the square wave of this LFO, is patched into the invert input jacks to invert the signal, the CV signal that goes to the second voice from time to time, inverting it from time to time. All right, end of this video. Subscribe and turn the bell on so you won't miss anything on this channel. And don't forget to visit my website from time to time. There's always something interesting and new to discover there. And you can grab some real bargains at my website. Okay, thanks for watching. Cheers and peace.